Welcome back to Speargrass Forge. If you're new here, thanks for coming, and if you're coming back, thanks for returning. Today, I'm going to talk about the 5 things you need and the 2 things you should do to start blacksmithing. Stick around.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Early in the morning. Way up she rises, way up she rises, way up she rises early in the morning. Drunken sailor, what shall we do with the drunken sailor?
So thanks for joining me. Now, unfortunately today is not a blacksmithing video of actual making something because this week I actually injured my hand. So and it's my hammer hands. My grip strength's not quite there, and I didn't want to go aggravating the injury just to beat on some steel. So as much as it pains me, I don't really have anything to show for this week because I've taken the week off due to making sure that my hammer hands going to be all good for future. So I decided to make this video for that because I've seen on the forums around the internet that a lot of people ask very similar questions, and a couple of my friends have addressed some ways to start. But I noticed that one thing that gets asked quite often is, how do I start? What do I need? What should I do? So I thought, being a beginner myself, I'd address a couple of those questions here today, so that you have a little bit of a better idea on how to start. So, if you haven't already, the first thing you should do, if you're able to, is join your local blacksmithing association, guild or club. They'll have access to tools and equipment and also people who know what they're doing in order to teach you faster and give you the better skills that you're going to need to when you start forging at home. Now, of course, I understand, I'm one of them, not everyone can do it. Not everyone has a blacksmithing guild or association around you. Easiest way to find one is jump on the internet, do a quick search for blacksmithing in wherever you are in the world. But, of course, again, not everyone has access to that. I myself don't have any local blacksmiths that are willing or able to teach me, and I don't have a local blacksmithing association. There is one blacksmithing company around me, but they do ornate gates and balustrades and stuff like that. So the first tip is, of course, what you should do is try and get involved with your local blacksmithing association. Now, the first things that you need when you're blacksmithing are, of course, hammers and something to hit on. Now, this is the very first thing when I started this journey, right at the start of my channel. And this is the stump that I started beating on. Now, those videos are horrible, but if you go back to my first videos of making leaves and tongs, this is what I worked on. It's a Bunnings anvil. For those that are overseas, it would be a Harbor Freight, or in the US, it would be a Harbor Freight anvil. But some lump of steel to beat on. It doesn't have to be high carbon, it doesn't have to be hardened. As long as it's a lump of steel that you can shape metal on, that's fine. And these are the first 2 hammers that I blacksmith with. Now, I don't use this club hammer anymore. It does have a synthetic handle and it can cause blisters, and I've since got better handles, but I mean, this is still a decent hammer to start with. The second one, which I still use to this day, is this ball peen hammer. This is one of my go-to hammers. I still use it. This is probably about maybe a 2-pound hammer. It's not very big, but it moves steel like a beast. And of course, I've got the ball peen in order to do any particular shaping. And I've learnt, how to correct my hammer strikes and heel and toe steel in order to get it to do what I want. So the anvil, I got it. I was a gift for me from my parents. But, as long as it's a lump of steel that you can beat on, that's fine. The hammers cost me maybe 20, 30 Australian dollars from the local hardware store. And this stump actually belongs to some friends of mine who don't have anywhere to store it at the moment. This stump is theirs, but we used it just to raise it up, and this will go back to them when they have the ability and the space to actually to store it and use it themselves. But basically, it was anything you can do, be it a steel stand or something to raise up what you're beating. If you're working on the ground, you can sit down. There's many ways to blacksmith, but as long as you've got hammers and something to beat on, there's two of the things that you need to start smithing. Now another thing you need to start smithing is a forge. Now that can take many shapes. I'll leave a link in the description to Ting Ting from County Line Forge, who recently did a video on a hole in the ground forge. This is a dirt box forge, the forge that I personally use. As you can see, it's got a pipe that comes out into a box of dirt for where the fire pit is, and it's attached to a manual blower that I got off eBay for $35. That's cheap and nasty. But you don't need that. As Ting Ting pointed out, you can use a hole in the ground with a hairdryer. Another option is a inflatable bouncy castle blower. Anything that you can use that can push air. Some people use blowers, so as in petrol blowers. Some people, when I first started at my friend's forge, they used a electric leaf blower. So as long as you can get the air moving into the forge to heat charcoal, coal, whatever, for a solid fuel forge, that works. Alternatively, you can also get gas. Now that does cost money, but it does lead into my next point. So the next thing you need is space. Now, I'm blessed in the fact that I have a fairly large work area and not very many tools, so my space is fairly open. And I've got another shed in which I keep all my other tools that aren't to do with forging. Now, Glenn from JS Tongs, and I'll leave a card just up here, that he forges on a balcony in Thailand. He uses the space that he has in order to work efficiently. Now he produces some great tongs as well as other work. He uses a small gas forge and an anvil. The forge is portable and he works efficiently with his space. So he only has a small space, but he does some amazing work out of it. So you do need some space, but you can make the most of what you have. So the last thing you need is desire. So that can be desire to work, desire to get out in the forge, desire to learn, desire to be open-minded and gain experience. No one's going to start this, and no one has started this hobby being an expert. Everyone learns, everyone starts off, and everyone thinks about how much their work can improve. But that also brings me on to the last thing you should do, and that's start. In order to take part in this hobby, you have to put together and start. Now that could be starting with your local blacksmith association, or that could be setting up some sort of forge in your backyard, getting a piece of steel and a hammer and forging. That's all the things you need. Tongs, chisels, drifting, punching, everything else you can make or comes later. Even down to having a leg vise and stuff like that, you'll find that later on. It's not necessary to begin with. You can make a pair of tongs out of a couple of pieces of straight steel that are long enough for you to hold on one hand, and you don't need tongs. So, I hope that this clarifies a few things and that it gives you the motivation and inspiration to get out there, set up a forge, light your forge, and get hammering. So thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, hit the bell icon to give notifications on when I release new videos, and check out my Spreadshirt or print bar stores for merchandise for Speargrass Forge. I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you all next time. Cheers.